We'll now go on to the Sheriff's Department update on body cams. Who will be giving that? Who will be giving the update?
Lieutenant Klinkhammer. He's muted right now also.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. The body cam program is continuing along. We've picked a vendor, which is called Body Worn. It is a combination of replacing our squad car cameras and our body cameras. The vendor has cloud storage, so all the video will be securely stored in the cloud. We're currently at a setup with the vendor. They're getting information from us and IT to make sure the system works. We are implementing the body cameras in both patrol and the jail and our conveyance unit. So every uniform line staff will be equipped with a body camera. We're developing the policy, which is almost done, and we have 2 meetings on that next week. And other than that, we're moving along pretty swiftly, and we're estimating that we will go live with deployed body cameras around between April and May, depending on how smoothly the installations go.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
Supervisor going.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just through the chair, so when you said, you're in a testing phase right now, is that accurate? You said checking to make sure that everything works.
Well, we haven't gotten to a testing phase yet. We're still setting up and in the preliminary stages with the vendor. So they're looking at our network and what is required in our squad cars.
So it's more compatibility tests right now.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. This is Supervisor Rodriguez.
Go ahead, Supervisor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are we doing with the old equipment? Does that get auctioned off for keeping it, in case we need it?
Well, the old equipment won't be compatible. The old squad car cameras won't be compatible with this system. Truthfully, I believe it would get stored and then auctioned off or sold or traded in. Well, not traded in. They don't take trade-ins. But we will eventually figure out something to do with it.
Okay, that was all.
Okay. Anything else from the committee or other supervisors?
I do have a question, Supervisor Rodriguez.
Go ahead.
With the estimated date to start between April and May, we'll be getting then monthly reports at the committee here of the progress?
We can, yes.
I would ask that just so we're all informed on where we are, we're going to be asked by the commission. And I know Supervisor Gully's committee is probably going to be really asking a lot about this too.
Supervisor Celebrate here. I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to Lieutenant, please. My concern would be where on the uniform or what is intended to be the place where the body cam will be worn by the personnel. Certainly, there were some concerns I heard here as to the if a firearm is that the use of the body cam, if it's put front and center on one's be it lapel or possibly near a button, where are we looking at possibly positioning any body cams on new personnel?
The company actually has already started modifying our uniforms. The body camera is approximately just above mid-chest height, and it is stored inside of a case that is inside of the uniform shirt in a zipper, and there's a grommet that houses the lens for the camera. So it's at the average height, or at the suggested height by the vendor.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm just curious. I mean, I know when we had talked about this a few months ago, you're talking about all the different functions it has, and for me, it's pretty remarkable how much the SOC can do. And I do wonder if it gets closer to the time when these are implemented, it might be good to have an in-person demonstration or, video demonstration of how it works and what it actually can do. I think it could be informative for the board and the community about the extent of what coverage they have.
Did you want me to answer that? I'm sure that's something we can do.
If anybody else is interested in that, I don't know. You were pretty in-depth when we talked about it before, but it might be good for a refresher, or even the community, to see really what benefits they can be for our community.
The vendor and our department, the vendor has promotional materials for the community when the body cameras get implemented, and our intent is to bring that out when they're rolled out.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Supervisor Berg.
Lieutenant Klinkhammer, in terms of the data opportunity or data possibilities, is there an intent to extract any ongoing data, and or is there the availability through the vendor to extract data other than having to visually look at something or look at the footage?
As far as what? Like, can you give me an example?
The frequency of how often a camera is turned on. I guess I don't know the extent of how often the cameras are going to be turned on. Are they only going to be turned on when a weapon's pulled? Are they going to be turned on whenever there's an interaction with a stop?
No, the cameras are turned on. Currently, our plan is to configure them to turn on geographically. So when an officer is dispatched to a call and they arrive within a certain distance to that call in the GPS, the camera will automatically turn on. The cameras can be manually turned on by the officer. The cameras currently have a trigger that if they open their squad car door, the camera will turn on. And then, of course, the normal activations of the lights and siren, or just the overhead lights being turned on, the camera will turn on. The portable body camera also acts as the microphone for the squad car camera. So they're all linked together. And those are the triggers that we think that we are going to use, but we haven't had an opportunity to test them. So our plan is to implement those triggers so that will turn on the cameras. And then the data that we can extract, I mean, the cameras are going to turn on automatically, and then the time period that camera's on can be tracked. So their software is very feature oriented as far as data extraction from the demonstration that they showed us. So we can look at one officer, we can look at a group of officers, and on their website we can we can just click on the link and view the video from whatever incident. So if we have an issue where we think an officer is turning them off prematurely, we can look at that and see what caused that camera to get turned off.
Okay, when we do have the demonstration, I imagine good chance we'll be meeting in person at that point. When we have that demonstration, is it possible to have a representative from the vendor there also?
Likely, probably remotely, but because they're located in Georgia, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thanks. That's all I have.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
through the chair to Supervisor Byrd, was your question along the lines of will the data captured be mined or used for anything other than the investigation of specific instances?
Yeah, I mean, is there data that, and I don't know the specifics of what data I'm looking for or what I'm asking for, but just the availability of being able to extract data. Because, I mean, there's always a lot to learn from any data, whether we like the data or not.
Well, as far as the body cameras, we'll have audio and video of most things that our deputies do. So like I said, the camera will turn on when the squad door opens. So if they're just going in to use the restroom or get coffee or eat dinner, they can turn that off. But when they open their door and they're responding to a call, they're going to be expected to leave that camera on until that incident is concluded. So we'll be able to track that, based on the amount of time they spent on the call and the amount of time their video is running. The system also tracks GPS data based on not only the squad car, but the cameras themselves. So if an officer is in a foot pursuit, for example, we'll be able to see a breadcrumb trail of everywhere that officer ran. So that's data we'll have. There's, as far as other data would be the time, date that they're turned on and off, the GPS locations, and then of course the audio and video.
Anything else from any supervisors?
This is Supervisor Rodriguez again.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know you said you're working on your policy. I assume that part of that policy, when that's finalized and rolled out as well, there will be disciplinary measures in place should one of our law enforcement officers turn off their cameras, whether there's an incident that is in the media or not, if we find that we have a deputy turn off their camera.
Correct. I mean, the policy is the rules and regulations that the deputies have to follow. And if they don't follow that, they are subject to this.
Okay.
Supervisor Celebragan, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And just to pick up on Supervisor Gully's, I believe, line of questioning, is any of the data that's being stored going to be something that can be extracted by the Georgia vendor for their use or reference for any purpose? And is it subject to an expiration, if you will, of the record shall not be stored for greater than 60 days, 90 days, whatever it may be in the cloud? Or is this information that they'll be able to access for an unknown length of time?
The retention period per the state statute is 120 days. So we can set up our retention. So the vendor doesn't have a retention policy. So the data, all of our squad car videos and body camera videos will be retained for 120 days. So anything that is of evidentiary value or something that we want to keep, we can classify it as such, and it's kept as long as we need it to be kept.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify off of that, you said the statute was 180 days, but we were keeping it for 120. Did I hear that correctly?
The statute's 120 days.
Okay. And can we go longer than that if we wanted to?
We could.
I think we should. If we're not barred from our vendor from keeping it longer, I think we should keep it as long as we can. That's my opinion. Especially if it's cost. I don't know what any of my colleagues think, but I think it's better to have than not to have.
Yeah, I agree with Supervisor Rodriguez. Whatever length period of time that we can keep it without increasing cost over that 120 days isn't going to be harmful, I don't think at all, especially if it's in the cloud. But there may be some maximum gigs or whatever unit of measure that storage is on the cloud before they start charging us more. Something maybe we should see if there's a cost breakdown for longer periods of time or larger amounts of file storage.
If I may, please. Sure.
Go ahead.
My question is to anybody in the group. So 120 days retention. What is the retention policy on other pieces of information, whether it's paper or audio, and not necessarily even just but retention in general? Because just, layperson on the outside, 120 days doesn't seem very long, but it could be sufficient. And I'm just wondering how that compares to other data that is kept, or what the guidelines are for the state for other data.
The county government retention policies are governed by county ordinance, so it's in our ordinance how long we have to keep things. So some things are very low, and some are forever. So there's a whole range of retention periods for all the county information.
Could you help me understand why this one is 120 days? I'm just really curious. I don't know what to compare it to.
Unfortunately, you'd have to ask the state, because that's what they put in the ordinance or in the state statute for retention, that we're required to keep them 120 days.
Okay, thank you.
So we're meeting the statutory minimum, then, is what you're saying?
According to the state, yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
But again, that 120 days is the retention of non-controversial or problematic data, meaning that if within that time period there's an identification that piece of evidence is pertinent for any reason, it's kept. So it's really that's the period to determine if it is possibly down the road, right?
Correct. I've been doing internal affairs now for a year, and before that, I also handled a lot of the squad videos and our surveillance video. And the longest I've had to go back was 2 or 3 months. Most of the time, we're going to know about an incident
pretty rapidly.
Well, within that 120 days, I want to keep that footage.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, I'm actually saying something. Supervisor Berg, go ahead.
So a lot of people are quick to use the argument of utilizing the cameras and disciplining officers or deputies. My question, though, is: has there been discussion with the DA's office in terms of if it's found that there's false accusations made against any of our deputies, are they going to be utilizing the footage and will charge it?
I think based on the seriousness of the allegation, if somebody is accusing one of our deputies of a crime and we conduct a huge investigation and we determine based on squad video or any other evidence that was false and maliciously done, we would refer that for charges, and I'm sure the DA would go along with it. Unfortunately, we do have instances. Well, most of our complaints are cleared because they're unfounded. Whether it be the perception of the person that's complaining or just somebody's angry because they got a ticket and they want to complain to somebody. So, luckily, our staff is pretty good when it comes to these complaints and staying out of trouble. So, of course, we would refer anything where a very serious allegation was made, but a lot of our complaints are very minor, so I don't think it rises to the criminal.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, Mark Nordian.
Go ahead.
Question I guess I would have would be, when it gets to say we're going to keep it at 120 days before they eliminate, is there a notification of the date? Because after we get to 120 days, every day things are going to be falling off. For instance, and I think I've brought up my past with you in previous presentations, we have requirements how long we have to keep certain customers' data. And what we do is, before we do that data dump, is we contact them and say, okay, per your requirements for a supplier, we're supposed to keep things 10 years, 20 years, whatever. We've reached the 10th year here, and we're going to dump these unless we hear from you any differently. So is there a checks and balance of what's being dumped and like an approval to go ahead and dump it? Do you know?
I don't. I think there's two parts to that. First of all, we're going to have nearly 300 body cameras on staff that in corrections alone will be running probably 10 to 12 hours a day. On patrol, you're talking probably 4 to 5 hours of footage per day from each deputy. To have to approve the deletion of that data, most of which would be of in name value. I don't know how we would have to view all that video before it's approved to be deleted. That would be just a very laborious task.
Well, and I'm not asking you to view the data. I'm just asking that there's a notification that this day or these dates are being dumped.
Well,
that's currently notice stop or something like that.
No, I believe it's an automatic process. Once our data reaches 120 days, it won't be available to get pulled back up.
Okay, thank you. The second part of this is any of the used stuff. We do have, I think, a Kenosha police officer who could maybe try to sell it over at the Kenosha PD. There you go, Supervisor Rambo. There's your next job.
Anything else?
I'd just like to note, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Rodriguez, that it seems like we got this done pretty quick, and so I think that's something that we should be proud about.
Okay. Last time through. Anything else on body cams from anyone? Any questions for this evening? For body cams. Now the next question for the committee. When do you want this topic brought up again on body cams?
Next, Judiciary. Yeah, I would move.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, with respect to, with that kind of timeline, I feel like we would request that every one of the meetings until then. It's free before that.
I wanted to double check with the committee before I did it.
I would request that unless there was a reason not to.
The rest of the committee is in agreement?
I would support that, yes.
Okay.
Can I just ask, would we hold a meeting just for that? If there's nothing else on the agenda, do you want a meeting just for that?
I mean, it's only two. I would say yes. It's March and April.
I would tend to agree with Supervisor Gully, yes. We'll hold a meeting just for that. At least for the next couple of months. Because if a policy comes through that we need to approve, then that meeting may take a couple hours. Does that sound good to the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. So I'll move on to the next thing on the agenda. Is there any other business allowed by law?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Celebrate.
Yes.
I would just note for the minutes that Youth and Governance member Gabriel Wellman is present.
Okay.
Yes, I already see her. I've already noted that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. We'll see you next month then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Good night.